Hi, and welcome to First Bite, a podcast by Nation's Restaurant News. I'm your host, Holly Petrie. Today is Friday, November 11th, and here are your top stories. First, Stacey Peterson Andros is stepping down as Wingstop's technology officer. The executive is resigning effective December 2nd to become CEO of a private, non-competitive company, the brand says in SEC filings. Second, Sweetgreen to test fully automated restaurants. The fast casual chain saw a 6% increase in same-store sales thanks to menu hikes. Third, the tip credit is eliminated in Washington, D.C., and another state passes a $15 minimum wage. The tip credit, minimum wage, and union protections were on the ballot this Tuesday. Here's what to know. Fourth, AF & Co. and Carbonate predict the 2023 food and beverage trends. The marketing and research group puts maitake mushrooms and baked Alaska among hot items in the coming year. And finally, loyalty programs are leveling the playing field for smaller restaurants. Loyalty programs have become more affordable and efficient, and now 60% of all restaurants offer such a program in the fight over consumers' dollars and attention. Now let's dive deeper into one of these stories. While many congressional races are still tight in some states, voters made major decisions on tip credits, minimum wages, and labor organizations across the country. Here are the ballot measure results you should know about and how the restaurant industry is reacting, straight from senior editor Joanna Fantozzi.
Election day is, of course, always a big day. And besides voting in the next era of Congress people and governors for this midterm elections, a lot was on the ballot that actually will impact business people, specifically restaurant owners, but just the business community in general. The big things that were on the ballot were definitely tip credit, which is also known as the sub-minimum wage, minimum wage increases, and collective bargaining, i.e. unionization rights. So we saw votes for and against the tip credit or the sub-minimum wage go both ways. Tip credit was eliminated in Washington, D.C. with an overwhelming measure. Almost 3/4 of voters voted to eliminate the tip credit. So basically, this will raise the minimum wage for service workers, that includes restaurant servers, from $5.35 an hour to $16.10 an hour, so almost tripling some over the next 5 years. And however, on the flip side of that, Portland, Maine, I should specify, voted against eliminating the tip credit. And on the flip side of that, again, voters voted overwhelmingly to decline to increase both the minimum wage and to not eliminate tip credit. And I think that if I had to guess, voting against the minimum wage in Portland, Maine had a lot to do with the fact that it was a pretty staggering number. Voters were voting against increasing the minimum wage to $18 an hour by 2025. There are currently 12 states that either have a $15 minimum wage in place or are headed that way sometime over the next few years, because I think almost every single state that has passed the $15 minimum wage has done so gradually so that businesses can get a chance to get used to it. And speaking of which, Nebraska became the next state to vote to increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2026. And another state that had a higher minimum wage on the ballot was Nevada, which, if passed, that would raise the minimum wage to actually $12 an hour, which is obviously not quite 15, but I guess better than nothing. Those votes are still being counted as of Thursday, November 10th. They're still being counted. But right now, the ballot measure to increase the minimum wage to $12 per hour is winning. 54% of voters voted yes on that, but only 83% of the votes have been counted. So as we know, whether it has to do with figuring out which measures have come in for who has been elected your next senator or your next governor, or whether or not there will be a $15 minimum wage, it oftentimes takes a very long time, hopefully not months. Sometimes it could take days or weeks to count those votes.
And so, you mentioned some things about unionization and some protections for union workers. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So these measures probably won't impact restaurant owners as much as the minimum wage and the tip credit, the legislation or referendums that voters just voted on in several states. So we actually had two sides of the coin, kind of. So in Illinois, they voted to add a constitutional amendment that would add the right to collective bargaining. It's sort of, I guess, doubling down, because obviously Americans do have a right to unionization, but it would add the right to, quote, collective bargaining for employees to negotiate wages, hours, and working conditions, and putting that into the state constitution. And I was saying that this comes at an interesting time, just because a lot of big retail companies, including, of course, Starbucks, Amazon, Apple, among others, have been cited and dinged for union busting. And so kind of codifying that into the state constitution would probably be a win for unions, I would think. And on the flip side of things, Tennessee voted to limit union membership requirements. So this amendment, one which was passed overwhelmingly, again, I think 90% of Tennesseans voted for this, would actually limit the power of unions, giving employees the right to refuse to join a union at their workplace. So let's say if you work at a Starbucks in Tennessee that is unionized, you have the right to not have to join that union. It doesn't have to be automated, which in many states, I believe, I don't know the exact rules there, but I believe that it is oftentimes automated, and whether you like it or not, you are joining that union. So I think that we're seeing kind of both sides of the coin here, legislators and constituents that want to protect unions, and also people that think that unions might have too much power in this case. So
thank you for listening to today's episode of First Bite. We'll be back on Monday with a brand new one. Until then, stay up to date with all your news on NRN.com.